Hey Greg, how are you?
Good, Danny. What's going on?
It's great to be with you here today for the third episode of Cyber Wise Guys. Today we have I would say, a special guest, right? Mark Jones, the head of cybersecurity with Chorus. How you doing today?
Excellent.
How you
Yeah,
doing, Mark?
I'm doing really good actually. Today's a very good day for me because England are into the finals of the European Championship. So
Well,
loving life at the moment.
you know, as a Canadian and a citizen, right, and with of Canada, with head of state as the king, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank
Right?
you. Yeah, yeah. The
Unfortunately,
dream's alive until Sunday.
yeah, unfortunately for us, we've been eliminated from the Copa America by the Argentinians. So at least we would have some sort of consolation with England going all the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Let's
let's hope. Yeah, fingers crossed. Everything crossed until then.
So we really appreciate you joining us, Mark. This is the third episode of Cyber Wise Guys, and we've said it before, but maybe I should kind of like repeat. The purpose of Cyber Wise Guys is not to be a 3 hours long session talking about everything and anything within cybersecurity. We want to keep it like short and to the point, high level, informative discussions, so customers and channel partners could basically benefit from some insights into different topics, and then if they need more resources, they can reach out to us and our guests and so forth, right, to get more information and have deeper dive discussions.
Sure. Yeah.
But can you maybe, before you jump into introducing yourself for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, the last episode we did, the second episode, Greg and I spoke about SIEM, right? Security Information and Event Management Solutions. And it seemed like the next phase of the discussion should be related to that. And we wanted to talk to you today and thank you for agreeing for this discussion about SOC and SOC as a service, right? So if you don't mind, before we dive into the topic of the day, right, of the conversation, if you don't mind introducing yourself, and then we can kind of like maybe take it on from there, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me as your special guest today. A pleasure to be here. My name is Mark Jones, and I'm the head of cybersecurity at Chorus. I've worked at Chorus for about 9 years. Chorus are an MSP and an MSSP. I think I started 9 years ago on the help desk, like just first line, second line, third line, worked my way through the teams all at Chorus, and then started doing kind of consultancy roles. And then I think we made a decision to kind of move into security or to formalize, I guess, the skills that we already had. And so internally at the company, they asked me to kind of be the cyber consultant, and I did that for a while. Actually, I said no, I didn't want to be the cyber consultant, and they said we'll let you work from home on Fridays, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then COVID happened a couple of years after, so it wasn't a very good decision. But that's kind of how I ended up in cyber, and then it went really well for us. We kind of went with Microsoft investing a lot of money in security, or really like trying to have a security play. I think there's a lot of the leadership team at Chorus knew that, Microsoft, when they set their sights on something, it takes a while for the boat to turn, but it doesn't take them long to become market leaders, and they kind of expect that to happen, and it has happened. So we kind of jumped on the back of that, and then we did like consultancy services for a while, and then we kind of moved into SOC services and built a UK based 24/7 SOC, and built our MDR and our XDR services that we can sell through TD Synnex.
So let me fire up, and I appreciate that. Thank you. It sounds impressive, and it's a process. How long was the process of migrating into or building up the SOC?
It's been a very difficult process. It's been a really difficult process. I think realistically, the SOC build was pretty quick. I think it's probably like I want to say like 6 to 8 months of trying to build up the SOC, but I think it was like built on a lot of other things that happened. And at the time, I was kind of our principal architect, and so I kind of built the services myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I became head of cybersecurity kind of just after they were built. And I've been, I've seen the security team at Chorus, basically, I've seen go from just me on my own to like 30 plus people now. So it's been a big journey. It's not that long if I talk about it, but if you live it, it's felt like centuries, to be honest with you.
So, Mark, I think it's important too when we talk about your Chorus's journey on towards a SOC. Can you define for us what you mean by a SOC? What is a SOC?
Yeah, sure. So obviously last week you were talking about SIEM technology. You need people who understand the SIEM that they're looking at, who can take the right response to that, and really understand what you're doing. And that's what kind of a SOC provides. A SOC is a security operations center. It's a team who are in place sometimes 9 to 5, sometimes 24/7, who basically look after your SIEM and your security environment. You know, if you have a SIEM as your authoritative source of security information for your business or your organization, the SOC are like the people and the processes who look after that technology.
Gotcha. Well, I know Chorus in standing up their own SOC as a service. I've come to interact with some of your colleagues and had an excellent experience with that. Can you tell me a little bit about what makes you guys different? Because there's no one way to do a SOC. I mean, if you look across the internet and you just type in SOC as a service, you're going to see services vary wildly across the board.
Yes.
What is different about Chorus? Why Chorus?
I think that, well, there's a lot of different angles for that. I think personally, I feel like the design choices at Chorus, the way we build the services, the way we architect the services, our guiding principles are always on like real value, and that's not like a gimmick. That's like really, I think, coming at it from the background we have. A lot of the things we did, you know, we're not doing the same things all the other cybersecurities are doing. We challenge the status quo a little bit, because we know what it's like to be the customer. And I think there's some things that we're really trying to deliver like really good value on. I think our approach is more partnership than just, you know, plug in and play and give us some money. It's more like we're trying to build partnerships with customers and with our partners. And we know that, you know, prevention's worth more than cure, right? So I think a lot of SOC providers are happy to plug into environments, but don't want to help the companies improve their security posture, which is, I think, is a big thing. And then the other big thing is probably that we're very Microsoft focused. There are loads of SOC providers who will take on any technology. We're not that at all. We are trying to. You can't be a master at all things. We want to be a master at one thing, and that's Microsoft security. And then probably the fact that we're focused on the right way to do things, and we have a focus for SMBs. And when I say the right thing to do, the right way to do things, I mean like identity is really important, right? We know, like, if you were going to monitor three things in your business, I'd say the three things these days should be identities, endpoints, and emails, right? In terms of like security bang for your buck, that's the best you're going to get. But a lot of the old school mentality is still on like firewalls and networking and this, that, and the other. So we know that like the best value is going to be on these things, but then a lot of MDR services that will be sold to customers just look at endpoints maybe, and that's reasonable, but it doesn't help if there's like an identity-based attack, right? It's not going to cover you there. So like all of our services from the moment we built them to today, like, well, we cover identities as well, right? We look at identity threats because it's so important. We can't leave it out because it's convenient.
Right.
So that was a bit of a muddle, but I think
That's all right.
So
yeah.
One of the
maybe,
things,
sorry,
Mark, one of the things I really appreciated when I looked at Chorus and was asking some pretty hard questions when I first encountered Chorus as an organization.
Yeah, I remember, Greg. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. So I mean, I've had some not very fun interviews with potential SOCs, and the one thing that I was really impressed by what Chorus does. And I think this is really speaks about the culture that you guys have built here, is that you're not relying on your tools to do the job of a human being. I
Yes.
think what's having worked in a SOC myself, I can tell you that the much of your security issues that pop up require a human conversation.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that makes Chorus different from the SOC first service that I have seen is you use the tools as tools, but your primary defense is that human connection, that reliance on human analysis, and that discussion with the
Yeah.
organizations that you're working with.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's really correct, and I think it's like counter to the way the whole security marketing world is going at the moment. Is everyone talks about automation and everyone talks about AI these days, and we can outsource everything to AI. I don't think that's the right thing
Right.
to do. Right, we need humans in the loop every
Absolutely.
time. You cannot be trained people with good processes who know what they're doing. That should always be the engine behind any service.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's, I'm listening to the news about AI and its integration, and even our discussions last episode about AI when it comes to a co-pilot situation for Microsoft or using it in a SOC. It becomes clear that the person that is armed with AI is going to be the analyst that's armed with AI is going to be the optimal way. AI shouldn't be doing this alone, and the analyst will be less efficient if they're not using AI in today's digital environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that approach that you guys are taking is a good one. Now, of course, it's with how quickly AI has been adopted, specifically generative AI across the board on security. I think it's a good position to be in to take those steps in a controlled fashion that doesn't risk that
Yeah.
coverage that a SOC will bring.
Yeah, I think there's like the biggest problem with generative AI really is over reliance, right? Hallucination. Like everyone uses Chat GPT. Sometimes you'll ask it a question, it will give you just absolute nonsense, a completely false answer. The system will hallucinate, and you'll say, "Okay, that's annoying. I'll do it some other way." Right? In security, if it says something didn't happen that did happen, or something has happened that actually hasn't happened, that could be really like the implications of that, if you're not validating what it's telling you, are huge, right? So I think
Yeah.
the stakes are much higher when you introduce generative AI to security. Definitely, yeah.
And again, that's really what I think you guys bring to the table with generative AI is the ability to help interpret those results, especially for SMBs.
Mm-hmm.
Which, looking at SMBs, what for a SOC as a service, what is ideally, or is there an ideal size company? I mean, do you serve companies that are more enterprise, or are you in the SMB space? What is the best environment for you when looking for a potential
Well,
partner?
I've lost Greg a little bit.
Yeah, I think basically what Greg was trying to ask, and hopefully we'll
Oh,
get him back in a minute here.
Oh, he's
Greg,
back.
hello.
we lost you for a minute there at the end of
Oh,
the question.
gotcha.
So I guess what you were looking at is the how SOC as a service, or specifically Chorus, right?
Mhm.
What kind of customers, what size of customers
Yeah,
do you serve, or I would say mostly serve, and what are the benefits for those customers when you engage with them?
right.
Okay, I'll answer that with a question to be difficult, but what size business do you need to be to suffer a cyber attack?
Well,
That's an
any
excellent
kind of,
point.
I would say, any kind of business, right?
Right, yeah. So we don't have like minimum seat sizes. We don't have. There's no floor to what companies we're going to work with. Right. There's a real cybersecurity risk for everyone. So and we'll work with really small customers. Maybe you talked about this last session and when you talked about SIEM, but obviously for a long time SIEM technologies were really out of reach for small organizations, right?
Mhm.
And require a lot of infrastructure. Maybe people to look after that infrastructure. Some of them are very, very expensive. We talk about some of, even still today, like some SIEMs are crazy money. And if you want more detections, you have to go off and buy more detections and some pack for that. And that obviously doesn't work for SMBs, but they still have a cyber risk. And often small businesses are more targeted because attackers know that they're not as well defended as enterprises are, right? They're going to have smaller budgets. Things like small charities and things we know for a fact are targeted more than enterprises are. So I think the technology is like the thing that lets us work with SMBs, right? It's cloud based, it's very scalable. Like the config is all code that we write the detections, we deploy detections, we look after all of that stuff. So it becomes very easy to do that no matter what size you are. So I think the technology helps that, or allows us to work with smaller customers. But I guess how we help organizations of all sizes is that like everyone has that cyber risk, right? Any business has a risk. They could be breached. It could lead to loss of customer confidence. There could be downtime and outages that lose the money ultimately. There could be like reputational damage, regulatory fines. Every business has this risk. And the best way to de-risk around that is to use a service like ours, like an MXDR service, a response service, where you have very skilled people who are very, very quickly going to be eyes on that thing, no matter what time it is, and can take some kind of response action, some containment action, and stop it getting to the point where it is a really major breach that you have to disclose. It's I think that's the value, right? And that's a risk that exists for companies of all sizes. And really, we treat all our customers the same. And it's the technology that allows us to work in that kind of scalable, any size customer way. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and you've mentioned the MXDR service you provide. What other services do you guys provide for customers?
Well, I mean, like on the professional.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, in terms of like our managed security services,
Yes.
we have like an MDR service, which is like endpoints and identities.
Mm-hmm.
We have a service called MXDR Advanced.
Mm-hmm.
I almost couldn't remember then. Actually, to be honest with you, the last time I went on holiday, they changed all the names while I was on holiday, so I'm still a bit sour about it. But yeah, we have MDR for endpoints, which is endpoints and identity. We have MXDR Advanced, which is really the whole Microsoft security stack, anything in Azure. It could be on-prem, it could be other clouds. If you're using Microsoft to look after it, we'll support that. Then we have MXDR Premium, which is where we bring in third parties, and it's a more like holistic end-to-end. We're trying to cover everything. We're mapping that to the MITRE ATT&CK framework, making sure absolutely everything is covered, and we have visibility into every single avenue in your business. So those are the services. But I think the main thing is that they're all response services, right? They're all services where we don't just tell you something's happening. It's not an alert factory. An incident fires and we email you to tell you, did this incident fire? Did you see this incident? We're trying to add context, take action, intercept things, and stop these major breaches happening, or stop changes in your environment that might lead to a major breach, I guess.
Okay.
Hey, Mark, I want to dig a little bit deeper into what you're doing when it. Oh, I guess. Am I back?
Yes, you're back.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. Go ahead, Danny.
So I was kind of interested. You've mentioned being based in the UK, right? So obviously you've got the UK market covered, and probably the EU as well. Covered very well, but for customers and partners here in North America, that might, unfortunately, and probably not truthfully, should kind of like maybe put some red bells and what have you, and whistles here. So when a customer in North America is looking at your services and considering working with you, how can you reassure customers in the North American market that their security is safe with you, or the security of their enterprise is safe with you?
That's a really good question, and the reason I was DDoSing Greg was, I think, to avoid you asking that question. I'll do my best to answer. I think
I'm a honeypot, anyways. It's all right.
Let me just move the DDoS towards Danny there. I think customers have concerns. It's really difficult across Europe, actually. Like, we have done UK first. I think when we first built the services, the idea was everything would be UK based. We weren't going to offshore or nearshore anything. Everything was going to be UK based. It was really important for like GDPR. All the customers we spoke to early on are a really important consideration for them. And then obviously when we go to Europe, each country or member state also has its own requirements around like data sovereignty, and there'll be things that we can do in certain countries that we can't do in others. As a security company, we're trying to do everything to the best, most secure, well implemented way we can do it, which let me tell you is very annoying. I wish we could not do that for one day, but we have to do everything the right way, right? So most of the time, I say we meet all the criteria. The way the technology works is like the data always sits with the customer. And then when there are strict requirements around like where we process data or this, that, and the other, we can kind of accomplish that through the cloud. So if we have like US customers and they have really strict requirements around data being processed in the US, that's fine. We can, Azure exists in the US, we can set up functions there and do that. We can make sure that data or reporting for that customer sits there. That's kind of the key concern from customers. And then just in terms of trusting us with their security, I think we've obviously really good references. We have customers who really appreciate what we do for them. I think we're obviously very accredited. We have a lot of security accreditations, as any security player would do. And then I think like the way we run the service is we have like really tight controls over what we do. So like if I was to get to a customer's environment, I have like a privileged access workstation I can only access with a fingerprint biometric FIO2 key if I'm on a compliant device, in a trusted location. There's so many layers of security to get to the point where I can look after a customer's environment or see a customer's environment. We take it really seriously, basically.
Thank you. Well, I'm reassured. Thank you.
Good.
So Mark, real quick, I want to dig a little bit into when you are interacting with customers. Let's take a moment to look at some of the things you've seen with customers of all sizes. So I guess we're looking for what to avoid and what to do. So do's and don'ts for customers. What in your experience do you see as the greatest do's and don'ts? And maybe just the top 5 or so, just a few of each.
Is this about building, like having a SOC service or choosing a SOC service?
Yeah, let's say if I want to engage in using a SOC as a service, what works best if I'm a customer, and what should I not do? What should I avoid doing if I have a SOC as a service? So I think that's kind of where many customers who haven't done this before may not understand what should I do if I have a SOC as a service, and what shouldn't I do if I have SOC as a service?
Yeah, I think okay, yeah, I think in terms of choosing a SOC provider, if you're looking to work with a SOC provider and you're in the selection stage, I think the first thing to say is like the devil is in the details. Broadly speaking, I'd say from a really high level, all security companies are equal. But I think when you actually drill into the detail, there's huge amounts of differences in terms of like what they support, hidden costs, in terms of caveats. I think something that amazes me is like we have 24/7 coverage, right? We work in shift patterns. The same people who work during the days are rotated onto the nights, and we have like 24/7. It never occurred to me that a lot of other SOC providers are doing like on-call phones or like partially automating out of hours. So I think there's a lot of like details that would weaken providers' offers. I think have a look at what response actions they support. If they're just going to let you know when something's happened in their environment, there's not a huge amount of value in that over having a SOC provider that is going to take a lot of response action over a really wide range of systems. And then I think look at their onboarding process, understand that. Are you going to be billed while you onboard? Are there huge onboarding costs? Are there going to be costs to introduce new systems further down the road? I think those kinds of things are all things that come up quite a lot. And it's something that with our services, we've kept really, really straightforward. I think that the don'ts for choosing a SOC provider, I'd say you need to see it as a partnership, right? You need to see it as they're coming to you with a lot of experience and technical knowledge, and I think the best customers are the ones that trust us with what we're doing, that ask for our opinion, that loop us into decisions they're making, that come to us for advice. And we're willing to die for those customers. We'll do anything to help those customers. I think look at it like a partnership. It's the same as any kind of service-oriented things. The customers who play nicely with us, we play really well with.
Yeah.
Customers who are difficult make life difficult for us, right? So
yeah, it's definitely not easy to be in a SOC. Again, having been there myself, I can tell you that our mission partners, customers, they would be upset if we were right, and they're upset if we're wrong.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you're the whole point of what you do is to give them bad news,
Yeah.
and it's difficult to do that. So having a customer, in my case, a mission partner, who is willing to, like you said, work with the team and understand that we're all on the same team. Right? We have the same goal, I think is very important for the success of a team. So that was my experience as well.
Yeah, no, I really agree. I mean, there's times where it maybe some customer suffers from like a token theft attack, right? And we might have detected it. And this is a real example. I won't talk about any customers, but there's a real example of like an adversary in the middle attack. Someone falls for it. Their tokens are stolen. It took us, I think, 10 minutes after that happened to basically take a response action and like revoke the sessions, spot it, sort it out, and then that's remediated. We've done all the right things, and then we're looking into like what's the attacker done in the 10 minutes they had access to those tokens, right? And there was some like email access, right? And I think like there's two ways to look at that. One is that's a phenomenally speedy response, right? And it could have been so much worse, right? We've come back to you in a very short time. This is what's happened. This is what we've done, and we're going to go away. Oh, we've gone away. We've looked at this. There were a handful of emails that this attacker's accessed, and they had access to the account in the 10 minutes they had access to it. And there's customers who will still take issue with that. So I think it's important to be realistic about what good looks like and what good doesn't look like. With all the knowledge in the world, all the expertise in the world, breaches can and will happen. Even with all the technology we can do whatever we want to improve security for these businesses. But breaches will happen. It's a moving target every week. New attacks, new techniques come out, and we're trying to stay on top of that. And it's not getting a SOC service doesn't eliminate the fact that once in a while these things will happen, but it will stop that thing turning into something huge or leading to really massive implications for the business. That's a lot more palpable for businesses to have an account that's compromised for a few minutes rather than an account that's compromised and sits compromised for months, which is something that we see a lot when we do like IR engagements and things like that.
Yeah. Well, Danny and I just co-authored an article together about that very idea, that the average time finding a compromise across the board when it comes to cybersecurity is 204 days.
Yeah, crazy.
That is, and the amount of damage that can be done in 204 days is, like you said, out of this world. Yeah,
and it's also in terms of like when you have to report breaches, you have to give reports on what's happened. If it's 204 days, there's no way you're going to understand the scope of that breach, right? There's no way you're going to have the information you need to actually make really informed decisions about what you're doing to clean up. So I think if you think about it, 204 days down to half an hour, I think anyone would take that. But some customers still like to be difficult.
Well, I think many of the customers should be reminded that the cost of prevention is much lower than the cost of remediation after the fact, right? Especially when it's been more than 200 days before detection even, right? So, and I think that many of the customers, when you come to them, or at least from our experience here, and the channel partners as well, when you come to them, say, hey, no, we would like to work with you and offer this type of service, right? And it's kind of, oh, it's too much, it's too expensive. And again, going back to that article you've mentioned, Greg, is that excuse or reasoning of it's too expensive, right? Can't fly anymore, right? Especially when cyber attacks are on the rise. I would say probably more than ever now, right? You need to really be take the first step before being hit, right? You need to do some sort of prevention, and SOC as a service really seems like a great thing to do, and I appreciate that. So thank you for joining us today, Mark. But before we let you go, right, maybe a few more questions, right? I know kind of like we're trying to keep this high level conversations and kind of short, but if a customer or a channel partner is interested in working with Chorus, right, or learn more about SOC as a service, what kind of, obviously they can go into Chorus's website, but what kind of resources do you think they should be looking for to start the journey to work with you guys?
I think obviously talk to TD Cynics, speak to some of TD Cynics. They're all very familiar with our services and have really good technical understanding of what we do and how we do it. I think you mentioned the website, so choruscyber.com. You'll find loads of resources for partners specifically, for people partnering with us. I think if people are interested in partnering with us, we have like partner packs. We can very quickly enable partners to be able to sell our services and understand our services and what makes them different. And I think we're really active in terms of events and webinars, like in-person events. We do a lot, like all over Europe, particularly with TD Cynics. And I think, there's lots of resource out there already that we do. You know, we're trying to be like thought leader, right? So yeah. I think we're really heavily involved in kind of like the community and attending events and speaking at events.
Yeah, Mark, and I got to say that I spent a number of years on the Department of Defense side working in a SOCs with Microsoft products of all things, and again I was very impressed with Chorus's approach on how all of that works together. So there's like I mentioned earlier, the SOC as a service world is kind of the wild, wild west right now. There are a number of companies doing it, calling themselves a SOC as a service, and they're not bringing those aspects of a SOC that really truly make it effective, like we talked about earlier. So yeah, I think Chorus is on the right path, and anyone considering a SOC as a service should really at least have the conversation with Chorus and TD Cynics about this invaluable service. I mean, really, can you afford not to have a service like this if you don't have a dedicated team doing these SOC functions right now? I don't think so. So, at least a conversation about what Chorus can do for an organization of any size, I think is worthwhile.
Yeah, thanks very much, Greg. I appreciate that. Kind words.
You guys earned it. You went through my interview process. I don't give those lightly. I don't give those lightly.
Phenomenal, guys. I really want to thank you, Mark, for joining us today. Greg, always a pleasure talking to you, learning from your insights, valuable insights, right, and experience. And Mark, I look forward, and again, we are working together at the TD Cynics and Chorus. I really look forward for this partnership and bringing in more services and help partners and customers better secure their environments. And with that, maybe Mark, being the guest, I'm going to leave the last word to you. And I'd like to maybe if you have any other thoughts or message you want to convey around SOC as a service, that would be great.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I didn't prepare a closing statement. The only thing that's coming up in my head is
rests, sir.
Yeah. The only thing that I can think of right now is "Come on, England" in the final. But
we'll be rooting for it.
I think closing thoughts on software as a service. I think Greg covered it really well. Can you afford to accept the risk if you don't have anyone looking at your environment at the moment? Probably not. The landscape's getting harder and harder. Attackers are getting more sophisticated. The cybersecurity industry and the attacker industry, and it is kind of an economy right now. Some of the figures there are really, really scary. And some of the demos that I could give you are really scary in terms of even that 204 days figure that we're talking about. I think realistically, I see attacks every day where attackers can get in, someone can do something they shouldn't do. Phishing isn't just email, it can be LinkedIn, it can be web chats, it can be anything, right? It's impossible to cover everything. It's really important that you have the right response in place. And our service or similar services can really help you do that. So I definitely think I'd encourage all the listeners to investigate that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys. Mark, always appreciated. Greg, looking forward to our next session.
Absolutely.
And let's find some